All right, welcome to practicing restorative today. I want you to have your bolster set up on blankets, and there's a blanket on top of your bolster for your neck. You can arrange it how you're going to feel comfortable when we get on our back. But for starters, we're going to have our belt so it's buckled up in a very big loop. Go for big loop because you can always tighten it. And then reach it around your body. You know, you can do this so you can get a little bit of stretch too. Surround yourself with a belt, but your belt will be on the upper back. And then if you scoop up your feet and push them forward, so it's as if you start with like this leg straightness, extending, reaching through the legs. If you stretch out into your feet, you can feel the feet trying to push into that belt. So I have to kind of finagle the belt so it's a little lower. It's around the arch of my feet. And then as I feel this bit of tension, then you can tighten up the belt like you're pulling your feet up with tightening and cinching up the belt. That's kind of how you're doing this, like you're giving yourself a lift with the feet, okay? So as you find that work of, kind of response in the legs, maybe very little for you in the legs. Some of us might just feel like it's awkward and that's it. So when you lean back, be close to your bolster, assist the motion of balance with the arms just settled. So they're not responding to attempting to do more or help you more, but just let the arms settle so that you feel the experience of your upper bones and your lower bones in this combination. They're just lifting, right? Your upper body's lifting. You don't think of it as lifting, but because you are upright often from your pelvis to your brain, it's usually upright, probably by now. But the legs don't necessarily lift this way often. So, give yourself a little bit of applause for existing in this shape or pretending to. And then I want you to feel where the back pushes into the belt. So your belt needs to be pretty high up if that's possible. Bend your knees. And if you want to hold your belt, just kind of casually, that might help, and extend the legs. So I want you to get a feel that your legs aren't completely trying to go up to the ceiling. They're piped up, but alternate bending and straighten the legs. And I want you to do this for, about 8 more times. So breathing in on the bend and exhaling on the extend. There we go. Breathe in on bend and exhale as you feel the legs extend and the length. I want you to start to work for a few more seconds here with the possibility that this core body is getting kind of ramped up, right? It's getting a little spiraled in the center. And then just bend your knees, let the feet lower down. And you're going to keep the belt around your back and your feet, but you're going to bring the knees out so they move open. The belt is on the inside as you've done for Baddha Konasana before. And now your feet will be glad not to be pushing together at the inside of the big toes. I can see usually there's a little mark there from holding that for a while. But get the belt around your feet, around the lower back of the waist, all the way to the buttocks, at the eyebrows of the buttocks. And then make sure the belt buckle is in easy access for you to unsnap that. And then using the blocks under the legs. Feel as you descend and recline on the bolster. Have your sandbag nearby and your ball if you have that. But feel as you lower back, kind of this motionary pattern of that lift and lower, kind of play with not just complete, relaxation, but you're working with suspending this circulation in the middle body. And then I want you to try letting your arms cross the chest so that you're giving yourself a hug. And just feel that natural positioning in the back of, the shoulder blades spreading apart. And take the hug to the other side. It sounds a little bit odd, but same layer of awareness, but shift the arm that's on top. And then some of us will probably use our sandbag as we uncross the arms. You can add a sandbag so that you'll start to work with the strengthening of the breathing muscles. It's a nice addition to the breath baseline for this pose, but it's not required. So if it causes you to feel a little bit confined, don't use the sand. And those of us that are still working with, of course, our blocks, you might decide to bring them up or lower depending on how your legs are in response to the stretch. So you want to feel the feet together. The knees have this openness, this quality of centering the pelvis when the knees are this way. So it's not as if my goal is to push my knees to the ground. You know, in fact, the more your practice goes along, you might start noticing, oh, a restorative Baddha Konasana might be to center my pelvis in my waist and work on my breathing. Could be a possibility versus flexibility work, okay? So feel when your arms are resting. If you want to be a little bit more active in this moment, you could reach your arms back and hold the elbows or interlace your fingers and stretch the hands behind you. And they all create an element of experiencing the in and out breath. So however the brain settles back, ensure that your neck relationship through the spine lengthening feels like there's ease in the neckline. And if that's not maybe the most possible thing for you just in general, you might make a little roll with the blanket and see if that's helpful right at the neck. You might decide to adapt to what you have, lifting the inhale and exhale, letting the spine settle. Just take a few moments here. Even if you're not noticing the work we did with the core in the very beginning, we'll kind of swing back and forth with that response from the spine to the frontal spine, the strength in the front. Simply rest the brain, the eyes, and feel the slow repetition of your breath. That might be all you accomplish in restorative, is a little bit of slow and sensations in the body. You feel where the shoulders, and that's a little bit of a blanket statement maybe for this moment, but feel where the upper pieces of your arms kind of layered into the upper back, maybe that's a better statement, and feel that area, you know, try to press back into the bolster. So the idea maybe of squeezing them to the spine is, it's not like we ever feel that we squeeze the blades in. Oh, there's the spine. You know, we feel the chest open probably. Okay, so as we move the sand, I want you to maintain the focus here on the upper body staying open. That might be a challenge. And then as you unbuckle, we'll bring the belt, to slide it away. In fact, you might bring your knees to point up and push the blocks a little out to the side. And then you can just leave the belt there. We'll use it a little bit, but you can leave it snug underneath you. Take a ball or a sandbag or a block to the outer left hip. Now make sure it's a little higher than you may have been used to. So it seems like it's right beside kind of your, if you're to point to your hip or the side of your buttock, that's about where it's at. And then slide the left foot down a little bit so it's easier on your lower back. And then as the right knee slides a little out, moves open with the knee, you're going to lift up that right foot, cross it to the left knee, the right foot or the ankle, could be either. And then tip the body weight on the lower branches towards the left. So I'm trying to push the ball in to that left side and then let the body weight move on to the ball, the left, actually just the left leg, and then hold on to the right knee with your left hand. See if you can negotiate moving that knee towards the left. Like you're stretching into your right leg. Maybe it's more than a leg, it's like a hip two. We'll call it hip two. And the right arm can relax beside you, right? You could put that arm to a reaching position behind you. If you want a little more than the arm besides you, but not reaching behind you, you could always put a block right besides your right side of your mat and let your arm rest on the block too. So it gives it a little lift, but it's not overdoing it. Right, and that might be nice for your breathing muscles to have the arm slightly up, nothing too advanced, or maybe it's behind you. Okay, so explore with the left hand's positioning of trying to move that right leg over towards the left. Yeah, you're on the side of your left foot. Give it a few more seconds. There's probably some parts of the body that feel pressure, maybe hip, maybe left foot. Okay, now when you come down with the arm and then let that left hand release from the knee, I want us to come up for a little core moment. Place the ball or a block between the knees, either's fine. Slide your feet forward so they're at a hinge. They're not completely in this full, deeper bend of the knees. And then bring your arms interlacing at the fingers, the roots of them, push the hands inside out forward. And some of us, the arms will reach closer to the, towards the knees, some are far back. But when you do come up, I want you to push into the ball or blocks. You're squeezing into the item between the knees. And maybe you come up halfway, maybe you like to come all the way up and prove something to yourself, but get a feel. Now, when I come up, I kind of push back into my bolster a little bit there, kind of press back. So get a feel where there is like this core conditioning, or maybe your core kind of bulges. Okay, and then lower back down. Bring your arms back to the center. Change that crossing of the leg so the left foot lifts and crosses to the right knee. The ball is to the outer right hip. Maybe you don't like that direction. Maybe you like it on the top outside of the leg. But work where it's pushed in there, whether it's a ball or a block or a sandbag. And then the sandbag can be nice because it's lenient, right? You can push into it. The surface responds. The block doesn't really respond very well. It stays forceful. Okay, so now I'm just letting my legs, both of them, kind of tip to the right. So you can play with this alternating pattern, kind of windshield wiperish. But when you hold on to that left knee, get a feel that if it's pure left leg and hip experience, your work might be to get that left arm maybe on a block beside. So you'll have to kind of push that block out and feel where does it respond best in my arm, where there's no discomfort. It's just support, right? That's interesting. You should have a lot of support in the class from your props. And the arm could go back. But you got to pick your battles here. So if you feel as if you want to stay pure hip, and you only have so much attention and when your eyes close to where you meander with your limbs, the limbs are great to have because they help us circulate in the mid where the organs are, in the front, and the kidneys in the back. They really help that circulation process, not just that you're stretching your muscles. So get a feel that when you're breathing, the belly body moves with the breath. And just let your head relax. If you're efforting a lot with your left arm, even on a block, then you might relax your fingers, See if you can dissolve some of the moments of tightening in different areas. I know holding the knee is a tightening position. The side of the right foot might feel pressure. So see if you can give way to that a little bit. Something doesn't feel good, don't do it. If it feels too much strain. Okay, now when we release the arm goes down if it's behind you, and release the grip on the left knee, going to take a supported version of bridge. So you're going to move the blanket on the top back and off your bolster. Push into your feet. Now let the feet be wide enough so that when you push down, then you lift up your hips and you're going to slide a block. And if you've got that belt stuck under there, slide it out. That's probably the first thing, because the block would just stick it to the ground. So block is flat, it's low setting. Seat is on the block, okay? And then once you're there, my bolster slid back a bit. So kind of settle yourself so that you can feel nothing under your head but your bolster. And then as you get your belt and you grasp a hold, now some of you might be belt towards ceiling, that's okay. Some might be belt behind. So you choose as you stretch your legs down. Okay, one thing I forgot was the sandbag. So you could put a sandbag across the top of the thighs. So if you feel like this is good as it gets for you in the moment, you don't want to add something, that's fine. But now the rib cage and the movement of the shoulder blades, that's a little different than when we had our first reclining pose on a bolster. Right now we have the hips lifted, and so the lower body has shifted a bit. And now try to push through your feet as if you had a wall to push into. See if you can feel the feet flex, the heels down, of course, and the feet pushing. If you can push more through the right leg and then a little more through the left, and lengthen, get long. If you're holding the belt and it's too much, you can let go. You want to stay with the intensity, stick with it. Belt is held pretty wide, so it streams through the arms as well as the shoulders. You can just give yourself plenty of belts. Be generous. With the breath, it might feel like it's not so belly body anymore. It's chest breathing. Your work is in kind of moving that breath a little bit downwards into the abdomen. And this will become even more important as we let go of the belt. If it's above the chest, just let it go, put it aside, arms beside your hips, hands beside your hips, and slide your feet so they draw in towards the seat. And then as you push down into the feet, notice that you might have this, anticipation of just pushing the hips up. So I want you to try to let the feet press down. If you need to slide them a little farther forward, that's okay. But I want you to feel the hamstring. So the back of the legs feel some tension when you lift up your hips. So feel that it's accumulating not just in your rear muscles, which might slightly feel toned, but also the back of the legs, like you're trying to get each leg back. Well, that sounds fine. Get each leg back. Get each leg backing. And then slide the block, and I would just put it over head, just kind of move it back there if you're going to use it for the next pose. Lower down through the seat into the ground, and then rounding your back, so chin towards chest, this is key. Hands reach to the legs, and then as you start to pull yourself with your hands at the legs to come up, feel a little bit of that kind of C shape of the spine. And then slide the feet forward and lift up. So your version of yourself is to sit upright, feeling the head lift up, the tail stretch back, kind of like a cat-cow version of movement, and then just find neutral. And that might be a little rounded, okay? All right, now lean to your left. So let's take our blocks. Now we get a change well, not blocks, but everything. Shift our props. Shift your blocks, shift your props. So turn your bolster across. And if you are right up against the wall, make sure you're not pushing into it with your feet or your one foot that's back. So I want you to have some free reach. So the belt is not going to be used for quite some time, if at all. So I want you to unwind the blanket on the bottom and then taking a stack of blankets. If you have 2 or 3, that's fine. Some people like 3 on this pose because of the neck pressure. But I don't want you to feel this side of the neck stretches too much. So that's why you might have the top blanket folded a bit. But you won't know till you get there, huh? All right, so here we are. Left knee is drawing up to the bolster. Right thigh is kind of swings back. Most of us will like something on the inside of the knee, or maybe half of us. That's not most, that's just a few. But when you feel that support, how about getting a sandbag and move that support of weight to the hip bone, and then lean your left side down. If the bolster kind of shifts a little bit, it will accommodate your ribs. But I want you to feel like you've got some support here for the lower base, the left rib cage. And then you decide, sand could be hip. You might go, I kind of like the sand on my whole side, much of it as I can claim on my own. Play with that. Be serious about using that support. And then lengthen. Such a rare opportunity to get the side of our body to feel length. So even if my right arm is not going to touch a block, which is maybe some of us, this will work, and some maybe not, you can explore. Well, I would be a little careful, like, does my neck feel comfortable? And then the right arm can open. It could settle on your side. And you might enjoy just finding a peaceful place for that right arm and the neck relaxing. Doesn't mean having your blanket higher up is going to be easier on your neck. It's not always the case. So if I push the blanket higher and then I feel on the right side of my neck like it's triggering tension, then that's not okay. So some of us slanting down is easier, but go with what your nervous system states to just you. Does that feel okay? And then settle the left side of your body. Notice all of the left side. There's lots of left side. And the right side is slightly exposed, right? Even if there's sand on it, it's the open layer. So feeling the ribs move with the breath. Simple. And feel a few more moments, maybe another 10 to 12 breaths with your eyes resting. Now, it might be confusing. Should I stay with side breathing, right? So this whole side layer of moving of the rib cage, or do I do that with the belly focus? So I would stay with the costal, the intercostals, the side breathing, just a little longer. It's just rare that we get to distinctly feel that space with our breath. a hope here is that we're starting to implement some awareness into our hip. And we're kind of teasing into that hip focus. Okay, so when you let the sand just slide off, okay, and we're going to start to roll up the body weight into that left rib cage, and just use your hands to help you come up and come up to the point where you move the ball away, and then you get those blankets, if they were kind of warbled, stack them appropriately again, and move the block to the front towards your feet. And then you'll take a seat. So let's see, this feels like the left leg is in that curve. So we're gonna change it so this left knee is forward. So you come up to sit on your bolster, and then just let the right knee flop down, okay? And the block is under your left foot. Now I'm turning my left knee to have it so it motions out. And this might be, if you tend to look at yourself and sometimes the screen on this one, it can be a little bit surprising how the spine responds or rounds a lot. So even if you're attentive to your alignment, it has its place in this position. So feel your foot on the block. Take a sandbag to the left thigh. So that's your kind of base layer. And if that knee doesn't like this at all, like you're just really getting upset about it in the knee, you can put a ball under or the block. That could be helpful. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is if you have this knee propped up and we try to take the twist with your leg across, it's just not gonna, it'll be even worse for the knee. So if you're going to do that, then you're not gonna cross the leg when we get to that, okay? So you can choose for the ball or not. But let's take it so our block or our hand is on the floor besides the right side of your bolster. So you're on the floor besides the bolster. I have a block under my right hand. I don't have to push it far out, but I want you to let the left side reach. Yeah, like you're trying to look under that armpit there. But as you reach that left arm, maybe it's here, maybe your hand is on the ribs and you're leaning, that's okay. Maybe your hand is behind you or it's reaching. But feel the ribs tilt, right? This is kind of a rib excursion today. The ribs tilt to the right. Okay, now from the ribs having this, trying to get the mid-body pulsing up, likely we have kind of a, dormant wouldn't be the word, but areas that are kind of sleepy, right? You can, like when you feel the arm move up or you tilt, you feel parts of the ribs, but not all parts. So when you do come back up, I want you to cross that left foot over the right knee. So the foot is on the floor besides the right leg. If this crossing doesn't work, you keep your foot on the block and the ball is under the knee. That's okay. You can do either. So those of us that have the foot across, see if you can use your hands to help center the whole leg piece, right? This left leg has a little lift into the knee. So this is a nice way to kind of comb through these muscles on the side of the leg. You may not think of them as stretching right now, but that is what's occurring. So feel if your leg can kind of pull towards the right. Remember when we were on our back holding the knee, we were using our hand to move it towards the right. So you can still do that, but just find that you're directing it to the right. It's not forcing it anymore. And then take a twist, left hand on the blankets, right elbow to that left side of the leg. It could be knee, it could be actually the kind of more of a flesh side of the leg. But as you rotate, as if the knee is not flush, but there we go. Turn the waist and get a feel of ribs lift. Exhale turns you. And you feel that intertwine kind of arm musculature and rib breath. And maybe the eyes close. I think it's helpful. Sometimes it doesn't look like there's much going on in this pose. Like you're trying to see where that it's exactly when you look at it. But when you're in it, you feel a little bit of, added clutter in the body, like added pressure is what we're doing. We're wringing it out, right? And then we'll release it. So get a feel of that squeezing experience, maybe even in the arms, the right back arm. Okay, and then as you unwind, well, you don't go very far and come forward, we'll take that left leg back to reach behind you. So let the left leg swing back and the hands down, and you get a feel of either the rib cage ascending or descending, you choose. It's nice to go down onto the elbows on either blocks or completely down to the floor. And you can always bury your head into your hands on this one, but get a feel of how the spine is responding in just its nice natural, kind of Sphinx pose. It's a little bit like that. Settle the weight into that right leg to what we recognize as pigeon pose. Just manage where the body weight centers onto that right leg. And how about a little bit awareness into that left femur too, that left leg. So if you're mostly right leg pressure, see if you can move a little weight in your arms, maybe scoot it to the left. Some people like to go far over to the left on this one, kind of wander the blocks pointed to the left, but just kind of see what direction is acceptable for your hip. That might be too much if you point everything left with your upper body. Breathing can only help. Good job. So feel where the weight is balancing just in the right hip. It should feel primarily that hip, maybe the back thigh, some layers of movement. And let's just try to get the arms back to front and center and bend the back knee. It doesn't have to be a lot, but feel the knee bending and feel the foot move. Well, maybe it's more that you're stretching your quad, but you are trying to move your foot, your left foot towards the buttock. Just see what it does on its own. If it doesn't go very far and it keeps kind of bouncing back to the floor, honor that. Okay, I want you to just feel a lot into your hip. So there's quite a bit of hip before we do weight bearing on the hip next. Okay, now it's kind of easy to finagle out of this one, I find. So if I'm going to get to side sage with this right hip now, okay, I just let the body weight pivot its weight to the right, like we focused on. And then I come around, right? So the left leg forward, and then we slide off the bolster. Kind of works out okay. It's fairly decent, reasonable change. Block goes behind me. And my right hip probably doesn't feel quite the same thing it just did moments ago, but it's now getting the weight into the stretch. So I have a ball on the inside of the left leg. For some of us that works. And then taking that range of the waist down. Use a sandbag if you have one. Just use it on this side so that the movement of the breathing muscles, which are kind of hard to spark up during our daily habit. I mean, we didn't probably educate ourselves with the rib breathing, so it'll take some education, and sometimes your body will remember it, recall it, and go to it, but that's why we have classes. Sometimes these are helpful. So the block overhead helps my stretch, but I could see if there's a lot of resistance in the shoulder. For some of us, we might not do this position. So if you choose to open out through the chest, you could have your hand kind of on your ribs. You could have your hand down on your sand. Okay, or it could cross over to relax on the bolster right next to your right arm. So I would suggest that your head is tilted down to the right though. So your right side of your brain is down. right? And you get a feel for the body weight into the bolster. I know the hip weight and leg weight is always kind of just feels like a heavier portion in some of these poses. It gives up and just lets go easier, I think. The upper body has some resistance. So notice where you can release in the upper bones. You'd think the sand would help us, but sometimes you still resist. So try to let the body just lean in. Yeah, maybe that arm feels like it wants to be ambitious, reaching. Slow, deep breath. Make sure your head is relaxed. It's not trying to turn. Maybe mine looks like it's pivoting because I want to make sure we're all still there, but but it's not going to help my neck, right? So if I keep my head centered down on the right side, you relax the face, the jaw. Now just feel if you have a tendency to roll to the back more than rolling down to the hip. So kind of notice there's a little bit of this rotunda in the middle. That's, ribs, core, rotunda. Okay, so now if your arm is overhead, lower it down to move the sand. And just shift it away. And then easeful, this time a little quicker change over. We'll lower and roll to the right. And then when you do start to come up to that sitting structure, right, we're going to have that left leg drawn in, and then we'll put our block underneath or put our foot on top of a block, and then a sandbag on the left thigh. So now we're moving over to this second side of this first phase of practice. Maybe it's second phase. So we got our sand here, and then if you have that extra block, okay, maybe if your blankets are a little bit back, push them in. Okay, now block is besides the bolster on the left side. Okay, and as I push out, now my block could be low, that's probably better for my shoulder. So as I push out, now if it's too high up, you can put your hand on the floor. But I don't want to strain my back as much. So I'm going to lean over to the left. Now, as the right arm either reaches up, you could turn and look to that right arm. You could turn your head down to the left, but feel where that reaches through the right side of the waist. This is important for the twist. So when you lengthen, you might tend to inflate right through the ribs, like kind of just make yourself bigger, but feel it honestly how the body leans into that left hand. Yeah, you can see if the arm is lower. Some of us longer arms might be better without the block, but I want to keep it so my back is supported. So just feel that reach with the right arm. Let's all lower the right arm behind us. So the right hand is reaching behind your back towards your sacrum. Kind of notice that when the hand is back. Doesn't seem like a really big stretch sometimes, but it's like you want this side to have that stretch. So when you come up and you take that right foot and cross it over the left leg, and you take that twist to the right, this side stretch, you can always come back to it while you're here. This side stretch was really helpful to get the spine, well, actually more of the spine of the ribs to go up. So I just really enjoy getting a little side stretch on occasion in a twist. Some people might feel the opposite of that idea. So when you rotate, feel if your left arm is here, if the hand is open, if you like to push into the leg with your elbow. And the right hand that kind of wanders back. And it could be reaching around to the sandbag handle. That might be helpful. But feel the rotation, spine, slow, deep breath. And see if you can respond to awareness, not just with the efforting of the position, but that spinal dynamic, right? The axis of the spine has energy kind of flowing on both sides to support your breathing health, right? Because the ribs are pressed into in this pose. And with all those thoughts on that aspect, you might forget the hip work. So when you unwind and come forward, my hope is that you felt a little bit in this right leg, maybe it was minor. When you come forward, take the sand off that left leg, and then we'll move the right leg back. Make sure your blankets are tucked in kind of close to your bolster. And then as the hands lower down, you can have the elbows on the ground, you can have them on the blocks. And if it feels like the elbows higher is you're missing out on something, you can always go farther down. But get a feeling of that movement down with the upper body. This is kind of one where you notice there is a lot of ease with pushing down into the left hip. Simplicity, just noticing and then breathing and relaxing into the shape. And stay with the reality in your breathing self. The back leg could just stay extending. It doesn't have to bend at all. There's no requirement. You might like to, kind of tease that circulation through the front layer of the back leg by bending the knee. Noticing that is interesting for the hamstring, right? When we started and we did a little bit of teasing on the hamstring, which will be completely dominant in the next pose. You want to get a feel of feeling some strength there. Just because we tend to be really tense in the quadriceps, which maybe where we're putting a little more dominant pressure when we stand. I'm just curious about that, but let your body weight lean the right leg back if you have been bending it. And then, I don't think I even mentioned moving your blocks or yourself to the right side, so you might try that for a few moments if you haven't already. You can feel how these opportunities, the last 5 minutes or so, gives you waves of movement to warm up the back. Now slide. Well, you're not sliding much. You're shifting your weight like we did last time into the front leg on the bolster. And let's first kind of visualize that you're going to work your way towards legs up, like for a moment. Just kind of think, not at the wall, but with the bolster under your pelvis. So that's kind of a visualization. How would the body push into that? But you have to do some pressure. So you lean to your left leg, okay? Bring the right leg forward. And then, these are all good lessons in body coordination anyhow. And then as you move along to sitting, I want you to scoot I'm just gonna do a little bolster hop there, but you'll move one of your blankets away, one back, and then when you come up move onto your back, I want you to lift up your knees, of course, feet have to go up, and let's have the knees in a strong bend. Let's not take, we're going to do legs up the wall at the end, but I want you to get some of these inverted patterns right now. So my hips are, the back of my pelvis really settles onto my bolster. Okay. Now place the block or ball between the knees. And you know, when you do things like knees to chest, you're stretching your back to bring your knees to your chest. So get a feel of that. This is both knees, right? You have to use them both because you have something between them you can't really isolate. Get your blanket cozy. Yeah, you could have your hands on your ribs. You could have your hands on the ground. You could have them out into cactus. To do any of those will be fine. But I would try them all, just to see what you're most comfortable with. But let the knees go side to side and feeling that there's direction. Maybe your feet are kind of cuddled together. That's okay. But feel how the knees slant from side to side and the back muscles just loosen up. Body weight into the bolster, hip weight, and brain resting back. Maybe your eyes closed. So you can feel that motion, not just of your back warming up, which is clear, but of your stomach muscles as well. Okay, now can you move the knees over towards the right side, still with that ball or block between, and feel when they go to the right side, they don't have to aim to your arm, but just get a feel that you move the knees a little bit downwards, stretching your obliques. Okay, so you'll feel the core side band a little bit. Now knees go back up, so they're moving towards your midline, right, towards the arms, or the arm, and then back into center, and then over to the left. And again, the key would be that I'm moving my knees a little bit down, away, good, so that you're stretching into your side. Have a different way to stretch into the side than when we're sitting and side stretching, but still the side. Okay, now if you're trying to push into the ball, it's not required, but it might be useful for some. You can tell the legs are not stacked in this shape because of the pelvis, but for that you need to survive. So you have a little bit of lopsidedness. The knees go towards the arm, come back into center, and then remove the ball and bring the right knee in towards your chest and let the left leg stretch down. So alternate really slow. Knee, and the word towards is key because we're not going knee to touch chest. Okay, left leg slides in, knee up, left side, right leg releases down. Okay, feel where the front of the right thigh is moving, even if it doesn't feel like it can do a lot of reach because your heel is doing the movement. Feel that alternating pattern. Now change sides again. Maybe that was a little too short on that side, but take the knee on the right side in. Take about 4 more breaths. Okay, last time, left side. Let's aim to stay with the left for a few more. And notice if you can find your belt. Okay, find a belt. As it, all the toys fall. Okay, so get a belt and let's reach it and make sure you know where your buckle parts are on this one. So as you reach your left foot up into the belt, that left side of the body, right, is in motion through the leg. So feel where the hamstring is stretching. Okay, and you can have these 2 versions today. Which version do you want? You can have the leg up, holding firm with your hands, and then put maybe a sandbag on the right thigh. You can stay with that. You could also opt for brain float if that seems appealing to you right now, which is where you buckle up, and then you would place the belt. And I would make sure you have plenty of loop, big loop. You don't want to have anything where you're tugging on your neck and you have to release it again. It's a big loop, maybe even more, and then place it to the center, the shelf. you first pull the leg and then you can get it behind your head. So it's easier, capture the head. So as we work on brain capture, that's what it could be called. We have the right leg reaching, and I think the sandbag is really formative on this one for feeling the circulation balance, whether I'm holding the belt or I have the belt, have the brain captured. If I'll remember that one. Okay, so when I hold on, that would make the hamstring maybe stretch more. But this version, right, it might allow you to feel the nervous system settling and surrendering, and this interesting sensation of brain float, right? That's the ideal. So once you decide how the arms are either going to hold or the head will hold the belt, breathe slow. You just feel where the spine is not necessarily arched or rounded quite a bit. It's kind of neutral here. Spine noops, spine neutrals. You take a few slow breaths. If you look down to your core, the breath might be looking a little shallow in this pose. So just let it be calm, not forcing. You know, the hands reach, if you have the belt on the back of your head, you'll slide that and you'll just switch the leg, that's up. Same thing if you're holding the belt completely, you'll just do a switcheroo with the leg. But once the right leg is up into the belt, your back muscles, you know, they're not really in a frozen state, but the bolster really does keep everything anchored. So use that bolster heat, you know, use as much of it as you can to your back area. So your rear is not, you know, it's a little forward on the bolster for this one. You know, if you were to reach around to feel where that right rear is, it's like, you know, a little bit to the other side of the bolster. You're not on the floor with it, but it certainly gives more bolster to the back. You want the bolster to have your back. Stand on left thigh. Have a little bit of a tilt, right? For some of us, we're here, some we're not there. We have our hands holding onto the belt. Doesn't have to be buckled up for this version. Maybe you like to really get that stretch in your full hamstring and calf. The left leg doesn't have to be extremely active. The left foot would be the place where you might put focus. You can let it be casual. But noticing, I kind of like holding the belt. This feels good. So just find what works for you. Even if you've slipped into a different option on the second side, it's okay. At least get a little bit of the brain flow if you did do that on the first. So that side of the neck has an even stretch. Now notice where you're pulling if you're holding. And if your head, if you get brain capture, okay, you know, you have a little bit of a curve here, but you want to let the head rest back so the leg stretches. That's a whole different coordination, isn't it? Using your brain to adjust the stretch in the leg. It's a little bizarre. You like to do bizarre things. Okay, every once in a while. Just here. Now get a feel where the leg has a reach up and away from your back. Okay, let the left foot relax. If you're trying to force it up, it happens. Okay, and then you'll slide the sand, if you have that on the leg, away. And we'll move the belt. Well, if you're holding onto it, you'll keep it for a few moments. But I want you to bring your head out of the belt for certain. So the leg is holding on, and then you'll lift up that left leg. Just take a moment where both feet push out into the belt. So if you don't have it in a loop, this is a good time to buckle up, I think. Huh? Gotta buckle up so you have a big loop. Let the feet push out in Upavista, Konasana. And if the knees kind of turn in, your emphasis might be to just remind the kneecaps that we're aiming the knee lights straight back behind you, right? So they're not turning in forcefully or turning out. They're just assembled, simply streamed through, right? So don't try to force the knees out. And then feel that the feet push. So it's like the opposite when we do with the ball between the knees, the opposite energy of the pelvic floor. Okay, so notice this version, this inversion, right? This internal opposite of prolapse, pushing out. Kind of funny, it's not really an experience you do often with your feet. You might be trying to use your legs to squeeze in often. This is kind of a rare leg excursion, I think. Okay, at least the hamstrings can kind of let out here or yelp out. All right, bend the knees and hold on to the belt, slide the feet together. And let's just keep our belt here. So I'm going to slide it off my feet. The belt's kind of on the back of my legs. I'm going to tighten it up so everyone's got their belt buckled. Tighten it up, not entirely around my legs, but so it doesn't fall off. Basically, I want it kind of an illusion that it's tight around, so it's cinched up. Don't cinch it all the way though. So knees into chest, hands on bolster, push the bolster away. And once your feet are on top of the bolster, you're going to lift up. I would be a little cautious how close it is. I don't want it so close that it'll trigger the back pressure. So I've got my feet comfortably stacked on the bolster. And I'm going to lift up. I'm going to tighten my belt down. So if I push out into the belt with my legs, and the belt is it's towards my knees, but it's not in the very center of my thighs or up on my hips. And I slide it so it does feel like it's kind of nudged behind my knees, and then I bend down. Doesn't feel very good to have it that tucked in. But so it really does feel like you push it up to the knees. There is a reason for it, so you don't splay the knees. So now I push down in my elbows. They're a little span out. Push into your feet, lift up the hips. Good, and let the spine have that motion and lower the spine back down. Kind of visualize, if that's what works best for you, the spine's movement. So inhale, push down into your feet. You also push down to your elbows to lift the hips up. Okay, you got robot arms. And lower the hips back down. And you're lowering the spine, I suppose, mostly in the beginning of that. Okay, let's take one more. And let's move our arms overhead. So if that doesn't work for you, you can keep the elbows by the sides. But as you lift up your hips, inhale. And then relax the grip in the buttocks. Feel the hamstring work, the back of the legs as you're pushing into your feet. Bring your arms up towards the ceiling. And then in general, we're lowering our spine down. Okay, now knees to chest. Unbuckle. Take a crossover with the hip. We're going to do 2 crossovers and then go to the wall. So I want you to take a moment where you decide, do you want your leg, you want to do the crossover with your bolster under your feet? You could take the left leg over, knees to right, block under the right, over on the right side, stand on left thigh. Or I prefer the bolster on the side of my mat, right leg down, left leg crosses. And then I can add the ball to the sacrum and then the sand to the outer leg. Now that's a choice. You might do the same kind of version, but your feet are on the bolster. So it seems to be a discussion about the sacroiliac joint with this one. Some people feel like this is too much pull in their SI area, and they just feel like it causes dysfunction. So I think there's just some that feel something there and it doesn't feel right. So this might promote a little bit more stretch than you want. So you decide. If you want a little more neutral stance, your feet would be on the bolster, left leg would just cross over the right leg, and you let your knees go right. Okay, so this is a version with the sandbag. And have the left side chest open. Maybe let your head roll to the left. And just feel where the neck. Maybe it wants to motion. Maybe it doesn't feel good rolling to the left. Just kind of feel maybe you want to roll to the right. Relax the weight of your head. You take a few more moments, feeling the left hip, the breath. Now when you take the sand away and the ball, and you switch the side, you want to feel how much you did lengthen, like how much pressure that you moved into the right hip and you swung the leg over. So you have as exact as you can in a second. So you slide the right foot in, knees bend. If your feet are on the bolster, it would be simply cross the right leg over, feet on the bolster, knees to the left. Or you take the bolster to the left side of your mat, right on the side. Left leg stretches down, right leg crosses over. Yeah, you can find that there's a way to do either of the directions. If you remember doing it the other way before and you want to go back to that, you can. And yes, if you feel just a little sensitive in the hip, you're not sure if it's overstretch or what could be occurring, the feet under or the feet on the bolster might be a little better for some people. So feel where that right arm is opening for either version. You can let the hand relax. Remember, I have a sandbag on the exterior, bilateral side of the right leg. Ball is to the sacrum area. It doesn't have to be perfectly X marks the spot, but you use it as an anchor for the tail. And your head rolls either direction. Feel what's comfortable for you. You can do that, you're at home. Feel what's comfortable. Feel the slow breath. You know, with that motion of the leg to the left, don't change it quite so quick here. You'll kind of feel that maybe it's primarily a leg sensation. Maybe it connects, you can feel the connector of the hip. But the back might not feel a whole lot of stretch, but it is certainly getting those areas. So what I want us to start to motion towards is kind of the full spine. We're going to do a little bit of work out through the spine process. So taking the sand away and kind of notice what would be an easy way for you to get to your wall space. So it's kind in your spine kind. So moving the ball away. And then when I roll to the left, I'm going to come around, and then for me, I'm going to crawl back to the wall. You might decide that you have to kind of get up and move some things around, but the things you're going to need at the wall is probably your mat, a blanket for under your knees, the bolster for our legs up, so have that near the side, and a sandbag. And think you need your blocks here. This isn't going to be a block necessity, but placing the blanket under the knees, I think, is necessary for the lift of the hips. It's kind of helpful. So when I have my hands beneath my shoulders, kind of notice how this can help the shoulders a little bit. So spread open the fingers, feel the feet to the wall. They're not like walking up the wall, but you're going to stretch the foot a little bit here. So the toes are under, stretch the ball of the foot. Of course, if this is really hard for your feet right now, then you can scoot away from the wall so the top of the foot is on the floor. That's okay. You don't want to be a cat, that's okay, right? Because that's would be the position. They're going to be, the toes are under. It's just how it is when you're a cat. All right, so lift the head and the tail towards the ceiling. And so you feel that arch. And then exhale, round the spine and feel where the spine motion is loosening up, meaning I want you to go through it several times, not super slow, but feel how the head and the tail, they reach to the ceiling and then the spine swoops and stretches. Yeah, so take an alternating pattern. Ribs stretch, parts of them. And then they stretch the other way when you round your back. Now we're all at our own pace, right? So I'm sure we're not all in the exact same shape, but feel where there's movement through the back, chin towards chest. Inhale, arch. Exhale, round. Come back to neutral and bring the hands out as wide on the mat as you can. So you're on the sticky mat with your hands still, but open out through the hands and then let the hips move forward. Well, they're just lowering down. That's kind of all they can do here, but push back into the wall. I find this to be very helpful for my spine and, just the whole body feeling like it's kind of unified in the selection of strength for my spine. Now, if it's comfortable enough for you to come up into down dog, give it a try. If it's not, you can come back to child's pose, and maybe it's even less than pushing back to your heels if this is too much on your shoulders. But when you lift up the knees, I want you to take a little bit of alternating the knees, bending. Your heels might not even be at the wall at this moment. You might be kind of pedaling out the feet. So as you alternate, you're going to reach back through your foot, one at a time, of course. And let the legs get that full stretch and let the weight of your head relax down, obviously from the spine. And the intensity of the arms working to hold your body upside down, right? To reverse that flow of gravity to the brain and the heart. If you don't do this for a while, you kind of miss it. Your hamstrings, your calves really feel it more than anything. It's the calf stretch. Okay. Now walk back to your feet. Now this means you might be a little too close to the wall, so you might have to walk your feet away from the wall and then bring your seat to touch the wall. Yeah, using the blanket under your feet would be a little extreme on this one. When you bring your toes up and you stretch your calves, it would be a lot, but some might like to do that too. So feel the seat touch the wall, the sitting bones. This is what we're gonna do when we do legs up. So I want you to kind of feel it. Your sitting bones get close to the wall, okay? Head down. All right, now let's give this a try. So we're gonna scoot, if you're that blanket, push a little forward, do any knee bending that you need to get here. Bend through the legs and move your bolster behind you. Be careful so you don't fall over here. The bolster is right next to the wall, flat. Okay, now I got my blanket here, gotta get the fringe to the other way. Gotta cut off those fringes. Okay, walk a little bit to the right side of your bolster. Actually, if you go up with your left hip down, then you're gonna be going to the right side. If you go up with your right hip down, everyone has a place they like to sit on the bolster to go to their upside down place. Okay, now do the best you can to take a seat. This is how we typically do, but one of the ways to teach it is from that forward bend, down, dog pose, forward bend, then to get upside down here. And then scoot the feet over to the side, and then again, you try to get your sitting bones to the wall, and then you're going to roll so that the legs swing up the wall. Everyone will probably find their own way to get to this. Okay, so my legs are a little bit, my buttocks are a little bit away from the wall, so I'm just gonna see if I can get there. I'm content with a slight distance. It's okay. I kind of like it sometimes in the rib cage. It feels like things are alive. They're not just like stuck to things. There's a little bit of awareness because they're not quite stuck on the wall. So sandbag is on its merry way to you. Okay, use the sandbag elevator and see if you can get it onto your feet. And then as you loosen up the hamstrings to get them closer and moving to the wall, you can feel the back of the knees open, the legs lengthen, and the weight of your body resting back. Of course, if you want to use your other blanket onto your core, eye pillow, anything that might give you some extra warmth or ease, take that in the next few moments. And then I like to settle my arms into cactus. I think I prefer that focus for this position. Some like to have the hands resting on. It kind of adds a layer of absorbing the pose. And then just let the mind weight be as entirely back as possible. Scoop up your neck if you like with your blanket. Sometimes just a tiny bit of curl with the blanket can feel nice on different parts of the neck. Even though it seems like it's a small area, you might have the blanket rolled a little bit up, just on the very side of the ears. It's going to be a nice place to go. If you kind of are interested in neck support, you can always add a little hand towel right to your props, and then at this point you can roll that in underneath. And as the elbows relax, the upper back centered, feel the belly lift with the inhale and relax and restore with the exhale. Full circle practice, coming around towards receiving, tailbone gently presses into the bolster. Now finally extend the exhalation. So feel the exhale lengthen for 4 or 5 counts. Maybe your inhale's 3 or 4. The breath could come out through the mouth. You could focus on nostril breathing, that's fine too. Now feeling the feet flex. I don't know if that's a feeling in feet or if it's a feeling in leg. But when the feet really have that shape of movement, the sand could be more experience on the feet, like the body weight. So you want that process of weight through the leg. So you reverse that cycle of flow, reversing the effects of gravity, right, on the heart, the lungs, the brain. Feel a few more moments of the organs resting in this shape. They're there's a slight tilt, they're inverted, so they're not experiencing the downward pull of gravity that we have during the day, right? The prolapse. That's why it's so good to get upside down for the organs, for the corgans, the organs of the core. And now as we begin to remove the sand, you want to slide the legs a little bit from the wall, shift them, and then bend. And you might toss the sand overhead. You might just carefully set it aside. And then the feet come together, soles of the feet, knees out, hands to the legs. That can help get a sensation of stretch through the legs. So this would be a nice focus if you have your legs up to complete the cycle of circulation through the lymph channels of the legs, because they were this way draining straight down, and now it's that adductor flush, right? Liver, kidney, spleen, meridians. And then as your knees draw towards your chest, squeeze them in a little bit, and then take care to roll to a side, any side. And I want us to finish so that our seat is at the wall if possible. So you're seated up against the wall, so you can come back upright and notice, maybe it's more your seat that you feel kind of close, not exactly perfect, but then the arch of the back is evident in this position, because it's not like you're flat to a wall. Okay, so bring the hands up to balance. The pressure of the hands, the spine lift, and the head, the brain, the mind, centering forward slightly. And let's immerse a moment of collective focus in our practice, breathing in and exhaling, bowing into your heart. Namaste. Thank you.